Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. When we left off in the last video, I'd come to the conclusion I had to relocate the battery, had a coolant leak that I'm going to need to fix at the thermostat, and I still do need to reassemble everything in the interior and do some updating or cleaning up of the wiring and the fender wells and whatnot before I get this thing on the road. So first thing, I did go ahead and order the battery hold down that I was going to use, and it came in the mail today. So here is the unit that I'm using. I'll have to mount it in the back corner of the trunk area, and then the battery should fit in there no problem. Based on the measurements I took, we should be all set, and this should definitely work as far as fitting the battery and holding it in place properly. So that will hopefully resolve that issue. Next thing is the thermostat issue. As I've said, I've got the CSR thermostat housing that has the O-ring. As you can see, I did go ahead, remove some stuff. I loosened it up and I was draining it because this vehicle doesn't have a petcock on the radiator, so there's no way to drain it unless I pull the lower hose or some other hose. So I didn't want to lose all the coolant that's in the system because I did, fill it up completely. So I just basically used a suction gun to try and get whatever I could out of the reservoir, and then just slowly loosened the two bolts on the thermostat housing and letting it drain out. Got a pan underneath it, trying to catch what I can to avoid making a huge mess. So gonna let that drain overnight, and then I'll pull it off. As far as how I'm gonna fix this, I was reading online and I found that Dow makes a grease for O-rings that is basically pressure and water resistant. It's supposed to be pretty good stuff, and I've read some good reviews on it. It's Dow 111 grease. So I ordered some of that off of Amazon. I'm going to use that. I'm also going to make sure that the thermostat didn't slip down and maybe get caught in a groove and was keeping it from sealing properly. So I'm going to do some more investigating there once I take it apart. It's like 98 degrees with a heat index of 110 today, so it's a scorcher in my garage right now. So not planning on doing too much. I just at least wanted to get something done. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do for the day today. Plus I wrenched my back yesterday and it's not real happy with me leaning over the car. So hopefully tomorrow I can come back out here. I'll be feeling a little bit better. It's gonna be a little bit cooler, get this apart and get a better idea of where I'm at as far as this water leak goes. So that should resolve that. Other issue that I just noticed now that I've run this thing a couple of times, I do have oil dripping off the back of the motor. I had replaced or pulled the lower intake to reseal it. I'm guessing that was not the problem. It's probably either a plug on the back of the block or the main seal. It's not leaking a ton, but it's enough to drip, and it looks like it's coming out from the bell housing area. So once I get under the car, I'll take a better look, see if I can track it down. But add that to the list of things to fix. So I'm gonna call it a day today, and then I'll get back to work on it hopefully tomorrow. So here we are, next day. I let everything drain out pretty good overnight. Just finished kind of cleaning everything up. I pulled the thermostat and the tank off and everything. So here we are trying to look at what I have going on. Looking at the flange for the thermostat housing, I knew it was somewhat pitted. Taking a look at it and just running my fingers over it, that's probably what the issue is. There's just a little too much pitting where the O-ring has to bite into it. Trying to decide best course of action. And like I said, I got that sealer stuff from Dow. It actually showed up today from Amazon. I got it next day. A little tube of it here. It's this stuff. It's Dow 111, and it's an O-ring sealer, and it's supposed to be used, in fittings and whatnot. I mean, it's supposed to be pretty high temp resistant, high pressure resistant, waterproof, all that stuff. Thinking I can, put that all over the O-ring and probably smear some of it on the flange when I put it all back together. But I'm also thinking I'm probably going to take some very fine sandpaper, like, 1500 grit, something like that, and maybe try and lap it a little bit just to see if I can, work any high spots down, fill in, whatnot, to try and help this thing seal a little better. I did get the thermostat housing off. It's right here. There's no sign that the thermostat dropped. It's not bent or anything like that. So I think it did stay in its groove as it should have. So I don't think that was the problem. I think it was just the O-ring seal. The one ring that you can see below it, that's the one that goes off of the neck that comes off the bottom of the tank. It got a little chewed up. So I'm going to order a whole new O-ring set from CSR just to be safe. I want to minimize the amount of times this has to go on and off. So I'm going to get that ordered. And then, yeah, I'm going to mess with that flange or the mounting point and see if I can get it cleaned up a little bit better. And hopefully we can get this thing to seal. All right, little update. I've been sanding on this for probably about 20 minutes. I'm using a 400 grit sanding block paper. It's this little kit that I got at the auto parts store. It's, a little foam block, and it came with, a couple different pieces of paper, grits of paper. I think this one came with like 400, 1,000, and 1,500, and then I've got one that's got like 2,000, 2,500, and 3,000, I think it is. So anyway, been going at it for about 20 minutes. I mean, it's definitely getting better. Running my finger over it, it's getting smoother. You can still see that there are some marks in it and whatnot from being etched by the antifreeze. But I think it's coming along, so I'm going to keep working on it with the 400. Hopefully I can get it pretty smooth, and then I can up to 1,000 and go from there and get something that O-ring bites into. All right, so it's been a few days since the last clip. Yesterday was Friday, and I had the day scheduled off of work, so I decided not to work on the car yesterday. Wife and I went and kind of had a fun day. We went to the Maps Museum in Canton, Ohio. Anybody who is interested in military history, I mean, they've got some great aircraft stuff there, as well as some amazing exhibits. Well worth the visit. So if you're anywhere near Canton, Ohio, and like military history, go check it out. So anyway, it's Saturday. I've been working on this thermostat flange. I sanded it quite a bit with 400 grit. I cleaned a lot of it up, but there were still some pretty deep pit marks. So what I just did was mixed up a batch of JB quick weld, a real small batch, and just filled in the holes with that, or like the deep etch marks with that, and then went over it with a razor blade to try and smooth it out. So I'm gonna let this cure for a day, and then I'll come back at it probably tomorrow with a sanding block again, just to smooth everything out. And I think that's going to be enough to get a good seal here on this thermostat housing. I did go ahead and order a whole new O-ring set from CSR Performance, just so I have everything fresh since I'm putting this thing back together. I'd rather be safe than sorry, and that way that should cover any potential issues there. So that's where we're at on this part of the cooling system. One other thing I want to add, cooling related, as I had mentioned previously, I wasn't really thrilled with the angle of this upper hose coming out of the firewall. So what I did, I went ahead and ordered a 90-degree stainless steel 5/8 elbow with bar bends for heater fittings and whatnot. I'm going to go ahead and try and redo this a little bit using that. I think that mixed with the hose I have, I can probably get a better angle on it and not have that stress point where it's pushing up against that grommet, which will probably over time saw through the grommet and then saw through the heater hose. I just don't like the amount of pressure that's at that point. So gonna go ahead and do some work there once I get that fitting. That should arrive sometime today. Also have to do the gauges. I have the autometer gauge sitting here to install the mechanical temp gauge. Unfortunately, that goes where the voltage gauge currently sits. If you look at a proper orientation of gauges on an original Cobra. So I'm going to have to remove the temperature gauge that's currently there and most likely relocate that voltage gauge to where the temperature gauge is, and then I can put the new temperature gauge in the center spot where it belongs. Being that it's a mechanical gauge and you can never disconnect the sending unit from the back of the gauge, I don't want to have to mess with relocating it sometime down the road, because that'll mean having to pull the sender out of the engine, feed it all the way back through the firewall, etc., etc., and you're just asking to damage something, the more you mess with something like that. So that's kind of my plan of attack there. And then lastly, as far as projects I'm working on, this is the battery bracket that I showed you earlier. That's roughly where I'm going to mount it. I do need to pull the battery from its current location there, make sure it's going to fit this bracket. There's not going to be any issues. Again, based on measurements, that should be good to go. And then I just need to figure out where I'm going to bolt it through. I'm guessing I'll use those two back ones that are up against the wall because there is a stringer there that it should be able to bolt through. So I use those two holes with long bolts, and then the front two holes, there's no hard contact underneath the aluminum, so I'll probably just do shorter bolts with some pretty heavy washers. That should be enough to hold it cinched in place. So that's really where I'm at with the car. I'm going to get some measurements on bolts and whatnot that I would need for that, and then I have to make a run to the hardware store to get that stuff. So believe I'm going to end the video at this point with these projects. Get everything I need, and then I'll start fresh on a new video with the next steps in the process with all these things that I have going on. So hope that gets you up to date. Hope you're enjoying what you're watching and learning something. If you do like it, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. As I always say, there's still a lot more to come on this car. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.